It's the finals of the first event of 2025. I'm so excited to be here. Cannot wait to cast this grand finals for you here.
We've got Adrien, who has been undefeated the entire day. As a matter of fact, I believe he hasn't even dropped a game since round 2, which is absolutely unbelievable, as well as Sunseed Jess. In other words, we have our 2 first place finishers from our last 2 events now duking it out in the finals. I don't think you could have any more of a fitting end to this tournament.
Very similar to how Earth was just kind of an engine a lot of people were playing before the most recent Tartarus list. I think water is kind of becoming very similar because both of these lists, I believe, are playing a significant number of water, but who cares when we got Astrabbit going first in defense position, the greatest opener in the game. Yeah, set a singular back row from Adrien, likely Apache, unless they're considering setting a second.
Looks like they are setting a second. With that, it is going to go over to Sunseed Jess. So far, Jess has been showing the absolute dominance of some of these frost cards that we've seen throughout the day. But it looks like she's going to opt for the water side of things and go with Eddie to try and answer out this rabbit. And by the looks of it, Adrien might be considering some kind of a counter to this Eddie, potentially a PTA. And there it is. There's the PTA, making it to where Eddie is at the very least going to have to trade with this rabbit to get the value out.
Frankly, if you're Jess here, I don't think you feel bad about this at all. Trading with a rabbit to get out a PTA feels phenomenal, actually.
Absolutely. With that one Eddie, Jess has managed to clear both a rabbit and a PTA. Something that she's not going to have to worry about as this game goes on is absolutely critical. Speaking of Eddie, down comes an Eddie out of Adrien, notably misenchanted with Thunder here, as he doesn't really need the Eddie effect after all. There is no Elestrals on the board, and it looks like he's just going to try to get a swing in here, and Jess is going to let that go through.
Very respectable stat line. Blizzard coming down from Sunseed Jess here, setting up the Cryoling potentially and outing a Thunderstorm. They've got removal here.
Oh, that is absolutely critical, and notably that does put Jess up to 3 Frost Spirits in her discard here. So you have to keep in mind that that Cryoling is definitely looking to be a threat. Down comes the Galaxy here. Very notably though, Eddie is still a 4/1 as it is misenchanted, but with no back row, Jess doesn't really have the fear.
And Jess has 2 back row to defend it, but it looks like a Quackle is going to come out here, smartly in defense position to heal back 3 Thunder Spirits from the Underworld back to the Spirit deck. Heal 3 is massive when, you know, most decks are only playing 3 Ambrosia at most in terms of heal card.
Effectively just being a 4th and potentially 5th copy of Ambrosia for his deck, which cannot be understated just how powerful that is. Sunseed just wasting no time is going to develop the Mustation here, being a 6/1 under her Galaxy, meaning that unless Adrien's back row is very specifically a Gorgon's Gaze, we're probably going to see a board cleanup here. I don't even know if Adrien wants to pop the Gorgon's Gaze to keep this Quackle up.
Yeah, the Shield of Achilles is going to be what Adrien goes for here to return the Mustation back to hand. So then I wonder if Adrien plans on using the other back row to protect this Quackle. I guess not. It looks like Mustation is just going to return to the hand, and I guess the 6th stat was what really Adrien was concerned about. Likely indicates that no Arcolith is in hand.
That is very true. We have the Viserys coming down here. It might be still telegraphing that Adrien has some way to negate this Galaxy effect if the Viserys is going to be threatening this potential board present.
Yeah, I think that if there was a suppression option from Adrien, it probably would have been used to protect the Quackle.
Potentially,
or we would have
yes.
shielded in the first place.
Potentially, yes. I guess the other side there is that the Galaxy does still pose a big threat, and Adrien would have potentially crashed it. But obviously, Sunseed just had the answer there for that Viserys, and down comes the Mustation once again, threatening that 6 attack body. And I'd have to assume that Adrien doesn't really have a whole lot to be able to block it at this point. It looks like Sunseed just is up to, I think that's 4 Frost in her. Oh no, it's 5. So that Cryoling is online, and even though Sunseed Jess is lower in her spirit count overall, Adrien now is kind of being put on the back foot.
There's the Arcolith that we were so worried about, and now Jess has to respond to this. This is this is kind of scary. Arcolith effect to re-enchant to the board. Doesn't have anything but itself to put under.
I'd have to think that Jess has something here to answer the Arcolith, and here comes the poison tipped arrow. That is actually going to drop Arcolith completely out of range of being able to walk over either of these Elestrals, thanks to Galaxy still pumping both of them up to a 5 and 6.
Adrian's gonna slap those 3 Thunder Spirits down under the Arcolith, and if a Mount Olympus happens to be in hand, that poison tipped arrow feels much worse automatically, but the Ambrosia is going to land here and heal back some spirits from the underworld to the spirit deck, getting back, looks like double water and a earth.
But aside from that, and there is the Gorgon's Gaze coming out. It looks like he's looking to pay out of Spirit Deck rather than off of the Arcolith here so that he can maintain that damage going in over the Galaxy. Looking like he just paid a Flurmine and a Leviathan there.
Yeah, this is about to deal 3 damage to Jess's Spirit Deck directly.
And then 2 additional damage for Jess to pay out the PTA here at the end of the turn.
And this has become a very expensive turn for Jess.
But now Adrian's 1 copy of Arcolith is out of the picture. Jess can afford to get actually extremely aggressive, and down comes Galaxy number 2. Adrian no longer having the Arcolith to threaten this. It's gonna be a little bit of a pressure push here from Jess. Even though she's substantially down on spirits after that massive payout turn, she has the board presence here.
Yeah, the really important thing here is card advantage, because Jess has developed a very strong board here, and
a Galaxy of his own coming down. This is going to be very interesting, as the Galaxies both will swap, meaning that they effectively cancel each other out, making the 2 Galaxies 2 5s and the Mustation going back down to a 1-6, meaning this Galaxy actually does have the option to walk over it. But the question is, does Jess think that it's necessary to pay out for Mustation here to bump it back up to a 6-1 again? It does look like Sunseed Jess is giving a lot of thought into this line on the initial Galaxy cast. Not entirely sure where she's going to go. Looks like she's passing priority back to Adrien, so no Mustation cast here. Adrian's going to set a back row, and looks like he's going to go and walk the Galaxy into something. What he's going to be attacking here is still up in the air. It almost looks like he was motioning to the Mustation. So Adrian definitely has the spirit advantage over her at this stage. But the Shield of Achilles is coming down on that Galaxy. This is very, very pricey for Jess, knocking her down to 2 spirits. That is a potential play we could see come out here. But no, here comes down the Cryo-Ling straight out, and Cryo-Ling has enough Frost Spirits in the discard at this stage. She is going to immediately be able to ascend it up into Cryovern, using the last spirit in her spirit deck to do so.
Well, going very wide here feels fairly solid if you're Jess, I think, because even if the Galaxy hits the board next turn, you're just outing it guaranteed, and you're swinging for 4 damage here. This very much could be the point where Jess turns a corner, but also there's a lot that Adrian could be doing from this position to out this board state pretty easily, quite in fact. And we have seen Adrian expend a lot of Earth, meaning it's unlikely that an Earthquake is going to be coming out, but Astrabbit will be coming out.
Yeah, and quite notably, Adrian did not do something like a shield on the Cryovern last turn, meaning that shield is most likely not in that back row line of his, as well as no PTA, as the PTA would have also answered the Cryovern. There might still be a Gorgons, there might still be a Tsunami, but realistically, we're not looking at the 2 most critical options for outing a Cryovern at this particular stage. Just moving to attack with the Mustation over the Rabbit, and Adrian taking another 3 damage. He goes down to 2 spirits here, and there were 2 more Earth Spirits in his spirit deck, quite notably, as he just expended them there.
I don't know if there's anything in hand in the game, frankly, that with 2 spirits is able to deal with a board like this, outside of maybe double Ambrosia.
No, down comes the Toxio, that's game! If Jess does not pay out for a Gorgon's Gaze off siphoning, There it is. Yes. Okay. I was gonna say that if that Toxeon connects, that would have been game. But absolutely heads up play from Jess there, keeping the Gorgon's Gaze in the back line, preventing the forced expansion. And on top of that, I believe Adrien still has 2 spirits in spirit deck here, meaning that some of those big popular options are still there, but it looks like I think that's a scoop out, and Sunseed Jess will take this first game here with Adrien scooping to the board presence of the 2.
Yeah, hitting the Cryovern late game there was absolutely massive, and being able to hit that Cryovern as soon as you can, just there have been some people who mulligan intentionally to be able to turn 1 Cryovern. I don't think that's the right thing, but some people do it.
Absolutely. Adrien dropping the Elechick here on turn 1, most likely going to grab the Zeus out of deck, I would imagine. The one of grabbing the one of. Thunder, unfortunately, taking so many hits on that last restricted list that it has lost a good bit of its bite.
Being able to search out that Divine, it's pretty strong. There's a reason that card's limited, and opening it in your... I'm sorry, we're playing Zeus going first.
This has to be telegraphing an Altar of Stars play, I would have to imagine.
This is very hard telegraphing it, but almost to a point where I don't know if you make that play if you're telegraphing it that hard. I don't know.
Yeah,
this is very interesting. I'm curious to see how this plays out.
You have to imagine that if that is what Adrien is telegraphing, which it seems to be, oh, the Cryoblast, it doesn't even matter. I would imagine that he was trying to telegraph that so that no matter what Sunseed Jess tries to commit here, he would have the ability to put her Elestral to defense and take over the board. But now comes down the Narpoon, and with no Elestrals on Adrian's side to block it here, and no Gorgon's Gaze or PTA to answer this, the Narpoon is going to be able to grab a Frost out of deck. Catarant seems to be the pickup here.
Yeah, and it also might indicate that Kryling's already in hand, and Jess is just thinking ahead to 5, 7, 10 turns in the future when Catarant might become a lot more relevant, making sure that she has it in preparation for that.
Absolutely. And on top of that, Adrien hasn't really played any Elestrals that you'd want the Frostmite tech into, which we've also seen out of Sunseed Jess. But down comes the Toxeon. It's going to make Jess expend again. But once again, she's expending that Fleur Mine, meaning that we're one Frost Spirit away from that Cryoling to Cryovern. Toxeon then, with the Zeus backing it up, is going to walk over the Narpoon and pass the turn. If he truly was telegraphing that Altar of Stars, Toxeon is one hell of an Elestral to do it, and Sunseed Jess is not even going to take that chance, dropping the Earthquake to clear it.
At this point, it's very much like you have to use it if you've got it, and it looks like Catarant actually is coming out here. It's very interesting that Jess is going for this. I'm a little confused as to maybe why we didn't go for the Kryling line earlier, but clearly she knows better than me, and Catarant putting in a lot of pressure here. Gonna go ahead and take Adrien down 1 spirit, and we'll see what Adrien can do to this very powerful 3-1 Elestral.
Also, quite notably, Jess using the Earthquake on that particular Toxeon does kind of telegraph that she doesn't have another Cryoblast in hand, meaning that realistically she might be out of removal spells for anything that Adrian's going to try and throw down here.
I think if you've got Gorgon's Gaze, you absolutely rip it, and she will be going for that, putting 2 more Frost Spirits in her Underworld and protecting this Catarant for a turn. That's something that Frost decks don't typically play. However, from my own playing, I found the Frost Stadium to be very, very powerful, specifically for things like Catarant Reenchant. But in this case, Jess is going to go ahead and just play out this Mustation, expending a Water Spirit to make it a 6-1 and swinging in on that Jolton. We'll see.
So if this Mustation gets answered here, which it looks like it will with the Altar of Stars coming down, but the question here, though, is that is Adrien going to be able to just switch the Jolton back to attack and walk back over the Mustation? Because as long as Adrien doesn't develop a new Elestral here, I don't believe that Sunseed Jess is going to have the option to kind of answer that.
It looks like Adrien, for a moment there, was considering paying off the Jolton to Nexus from Zeus to the Jolton, but looks like it's just going to be paid out of Spirit deck. The Mustation gets swapped to defense, and this attack is just not going to go through.
So Mustation is still going to be a 6 defense wall, which does force some kind of a consideration here. The Funny Bunny, the Astrabbit coming down out of Adrien, going to be looking at the top 3 of his deck to see if he can find maybe some kind of an answer to the Crab, as the Jolton is already pressuring a full answer to the Catarant.
Likely with the Rabbit attacking over it, as Jolton swinging into the Catarant, I'd assume, for 1 damage. We're just playing the attack Rabbit, I guess. Very interesting. I'm curious to see what the rationale is behind that. Likely there just is a tsunami setback there, so there's no reason to fear.
But the other thing that Jess probably has to consider here is the back of her mind. You have to always think, is that Arcolith live? And the Galaxy coming down here is going to put a big threat on the board through the Mustation, and the arrow is going to be paid here, initial spirit off the Jolton, but it does beg the question of whale arrow ? As this whale is still a 5-0 at this particular stage. With that said, I would imagine that Jess would be trying to walk in with the whale first, just so that if there is a Gorgon's Gaze in the back row, she is not losing both of her Elestrals to this line.
Yeah, and it looks like a shield is going to come out on...
A shield on the PTA'd Galaxy. That definitely is a head turner of a play, as now you're not going to be able to get anything off of it. Though I guess as long as you don't develop an Elestral here, you can just walk over the Muss.
Yeah, the correct play is absolutely to just re-enchant the Astrabbit. Very curious to blow through both of those back row just like that, but it doesn't really matter here because it looks like Adrian's just going to be able to walk in for 2 damage, taking out this Mustation here.
Absolutely. It's absolutely for sure that Adrien was trying to make Jess play a very specific way, threatening to lose both of her Elestrals, and by her going the safer route, she loses both of her Elestrals, as the set was not a Gorgons at that stage. You have to imagine that Jess needs to make some kind of a play here, and it looks like she is going to develop the second Galaxy, or not the second Galaxy, that is the Galaxy that got shielded back, actually.
Massive deficit compared to Adrien, who's been very spirit conservative this entire game, and the shield
and another shield.
That might be it here.
Yeah, with Jess at 5 spirits here, Adrien can commit an additional spirit to the board now very safely, and it's the Quackle going to be able to recover 3 Thunder yet again here, which, while not seemingly too important at this particular stage, might be what clenches this, as Jess is going to be going down to 1 spirit left in her spirit deck off of this swing here.
Yeah, that certainly doesn't feel too good if you are Jess.
You have to imagine Jess is looking for Ambrosia.
She's got Ambrosia.
She does in fact have the Ambrosia. So Jess is still slightly in this one. I have to imagine, though, that the card that she's death gripping onto has to be the Cryoling, doesn't it? And that's absolutely what it is. Cryoling coming down here, once again threatening to ascend straight up into that Cryovern, which has proven to be probably the MVP of Jess's deck. Specifically wanting to know how big this Cryoling is going to be as it comes down.
Oh, there's a Cryovern. Does Adrien have a way to out this? This was what turned the corner for Jess in game 1, was sticking this Cryovern.
Yeah, and if Adrien, I think it's pretty safe to assume at this stage that Adrian's back row is in fact the Gorgon's Gaze, as I don't think he would have considered his options this long, as long as he did, if it wasn't the Gorgons, and asked for how many Frost Spirits are in the Underworld. But Sunseed Jess having the second copy of Ambrosia there, able to recover back up, and there is the Gorgon's Gaze in the back row, at the very least going to stall out this Cryovern from clinching just completely swinging the game back into Jess's favor. But now Adrien, who was looking very dominant here, might actually be a bit on the back foot, as I don't know if he has an easy answer to this Cryovern.
All the Elestrals are going to defense position, it looks like, and that's certainly going to indicate to Jess that Adrien does not have a great way to out this Cryovern. Re-enchant Astrabbit could see what he needs from this main deck here.
If he did have access potentially to Earthquake, I'd imagine you'd keep them in attack and threaten to end the game right then and there if you hit it.
Yeah, the Ambrosia here is pretty big. If either of those sets are Shield of Achilles, though, that might be a game-winning activation. And SunseedJess certainly has to consider that. That's an Earth Spirit going back to the Spirit deck, though. That certainly telegraphs a potential Earthquake on the horizon.
And down comes the Astrabbit, Jess looking to try and potentially maybe find either an Ambrosia or a Catarant to maybe get her spirit count back up. But down comes the PTA out of Adrien, paying off of the Quackle quite notably, which is going to drop his board presence down a little bit here. But Astrabbit is still going to be able to resolve. Jess is going to get to look at the top 3 of her deck, though that bunny might not be smiling for long.
She's kept it in this game for a lot longer than I think I would have been able to keep in. Setting 2 back row and swinging likely at this Astrabbit here.
I'd have to imagine it is at the Astrabbit. And judging by how Adrien is kind of moving his hands there, I don't think he has the shield in the back row to contest it here. The PTA is going to pay out and take out the rabbit. So once again, Jess is living on a Cryovern and a Dream here. This Cryovern, once again, kind of proving to be the MVP of Jess's deck, as it just absolutely has been cleaning up both game 1 and game 2 of this set. So really trying to find a way over this Cryovern is going to be difficult, but down comes the bunny. If there is anyone who can actually find it, it is that funny bunny. And that is going to let Adrien look at the top 3 of his deck, and potentially the way he snapped that, I have to imagine he found something.
Are you going to windmill slam an Earthquake here? I think he would have used
No, I think he found the shield. I think he might have found the shield to answer this Cryovern.
Surely something like Catarant would be massive here. It looks like we're just going to swing.
And there is the shield coming down. That is unfortunate. Yeah, that is unfortunate. It looks like Adrien will be going first for this game. Or
Sunseed
Jess is going first for this game. My mistake here. That means that Narpoon comes down and immediately grabs the Cryoling out of deck.
Yeah, this is a part of why I was confused by the Catarant pickup early game 2. Is I really, the Cryoling is so critical to the game plan on Jess's side that not seeing it searched out immediately just feels very strange. But Adrien has the Eddie to swap this Narpoon to defense position and take over this board state. But I think if you're Jess, you probably don't care all that much, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie taking out a Narpoon is a big deal because you do lose your board presence a little bit. But it's still pretty early in the game, and Jess is seeing back row this time. With that said, though, the Eddie swing in, Jess is considering. It looks like a shield is going to come out, maybe telegraphing that Jess doesn't have a whole lot of other options in her hand in terms of Elestrals. Though we do know the Cryoling's in hand. Currently, that Cryoling is only sitting at about, what, a 3 attack at this point?
Well, it's going to be a 4 after the expended draw here. I think the other thing to consider, though, is that bouncing it to hand not only sets up Graveyard for Cryoling in the future, but also it forces Adrien to recommit this Eddie to board and waste a turn outing the Narpoon. And Elechick, in this case, also going to be able to potentially deal with the Narpoon. But Jess is essentially baiting out all of Adrian's cards to try and make him commit to board. So then she can, after he's committed everything, start to press back in.
Probably means he has some way to get his Thunder Spirits back into Spirit deck, maybe something like a Quackle sitting in hand. But for now, looks like he's going to be committing 3 to the Zeus, maybe potentially setting up an Arcolith play sometime here in the near future.
Just considering this back row, it's a tsunami. So not only does she make Adrien commit to the board with this Elechick, but also commit the Zeus. And now Elechick it's destined for the underworld. 6 cards in hand, lots of options. And
it looks like an earthquake. Oh, that earthquake coming down, cleaning up the Elechick here. Just not really wanting to risk playing into Adrien's 3 back row. Quite frankly, a little bit understandable at this point, but also a good bit dangerous. Going for the expend to draw, just now at 4 Frost Spirits in the Underworld is just constantly pushing advantage to try and set up this big Cryoling push coming down the line. Narpoon getting in for 1 and passing back to Adrian just has 1 set. You have to imagine that set has to be something live if she was going for something that kind of, quite frankly, gutsy.
Yeah, and the Astrabbit coming down in attack position here, threatening out this Narpoon, but the poison tip arrow is going to do it. The Zeus will not be able to help out the rabbit here to out the Narpoon.
She just expended her 5th off of that PTA as well, meaning that Cryoling can now go straight up into Cryovern, which is a very threatening thing. But down comes the Mount Olympus. That's actually going to put Rabbit back to 1 attack, meaning that and a race to the top as a follow-up to clean up the Narpoon.
That's a crazy series of card activations there. Adrian is just seeing every single card that he needs to see in this game 3. Deck is absolutely performing exactly how you want it to. Sunseed Jess, considering the expend to pop, going to go ahead and pay out, dropping down in spirits, looking like she is indeed at 9 here.
I'd have to imagine that Jess, it does not want to cast the Cryoling right now, but might be forced to. Nope, down comes the Catarant. Catarant is going to get her back some of those Frost Spirits that she has expended over the course of this game. But down comes the Gorgon's Gaze, notably paying off of the Zeus and out of the Spirit deck to stop the Catarant from both healing and being able to swing in for 1. Very interesting play there. But that does keep Jess on a bit of a lower spirit count. And Adrien, having the spirits to spare, probably doesn't really care too much about taking the negative play there.
He's looking at what his options are. He's playing out the Quackle.
Oh, the Quackle coming down. Once again, being able to recover those 3 spirits, so that Gorgon's Gaze was effectively free. And on top of that, because of Mount Olympus, this Quackle is actually at a 3-4 right now, meaning if Adrien wanted to, he could crash it, but I imagine he's probably going to pay off of the Zeus here to drop that Catarant down just low enough so that Quackle can just run over it.
It is expensive to shield a Cryovern, but it looks like we're about to find out if Adrien has it, as a Cryoling has hit the board. Adrien not responding to the effect to ascend. I'm gonna go ahead and look in our deck for that Cryovern. We may be willing to find here. We might have both of the Cryoverns in hand.
That is unfortunate. Once again, the Cryovern being in hand for Sunseed Jess. I imagine this is going to be misenchanted. Oh, with a Thunder actually coming down. So now that Mount Olympus is actually buffing this Cryovern to an 8-5, it actually makes it a lot harder to deal with overall. And on top of that, though you are weak to Tsunami, it does mean that Galaxy is not an answer for this Cryovern.
Yeah, the Shield of Achilles is going to come out from Adrien, as we predicted.
Yeah, that shield has been glued to Adrian's hand almost the whole day at this point. So you have to imagine that he has it. But this is a very expensive shield, like you said previously.
Yeah, 3 to pay out brings them almost to parity here in Spirit deck. But Adrien absolutely in advantage here in terms of board state. But we've seen Jess come from behind in terms of Spirit count, at least once here and almost a second time in game 2. But a Galaxy coming down.
There is the Galaxy. So Jess, heads up play by not misenchanting that Cryovern with water here. And the Galaxy is going to kind of complicate the math on things. Jess having to expend 2 from this combat, gonna drop her to 4 spirits. Notably, she is pitching off the water spirits, or she's so low on frost spirits, or she has an ambrosia, so it doesn't matter anyways.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier in this set, Jess is very good at slow rolling her advantage and not really showing her hand until very late in the game. And this, the only reason she's activating this card is because she feels that she has to, otherwise the game is over, and she's probably correct.
Quite notably, adding back 3 Frost here, kind of showing that she's going to be going more into the Frost side of her deck. Down comes the Moralith here.
That's insane.
As she does have more Elestrals in her discard pile than Adrien does at this stage. And this Moralith is going to proceed to mill 5. Not super important for Jess's deck, but still something that might be something worth considering on Adrien's end.
Gorgonzing the mill here is it's a very interesting option. I guess it prevents an Enfrostic setup potentially, but that doesn't matter because Sunseed Jess has everything that she might need in the underworld. We're really just preventing an attack here, if anything. Just considering her options and passing on over to Adrian.
But also, like you said, having Catarant and the Cryoling already in discard, I imagine that Jess is kind of okay with whatever she hits there, if that did go off. Ambrosia coming in here, grabbing back a Water, a Thunder, and an Earth. Very notably, that Earth coming back. Have we seen an Earthquake out of Adrian this game?
I do not believe so. I believe we saw Jess with an Earthquake, but we do see Adrian playing the Demeter here.
Oh, the Demeter coming down here might actually spell the end of the game, as Demeter can buff up the Galaxy to now walk over this Morolith, and Jess has no back row to be able to contest this.
Yeah, this is horrifying, I think, if you're Jess. I don't know what much more you can do, and the Spectera's hitting the board as well. This is a board of a lot of very scary Elestrals on Adrian's side, and they're swinging for a lot of damage here too. It's going to put Jess down to just 2 spirits in Spirit deck.
Yeah, but we have seen Jess at that 2 spirit threshold. We have seen her come back from that 2 spirit threshold like she did in game 1. So I wouldn't count Jess out quite yet, even though she has burned one of her Ambrosias here. I have to imagine that she probably has something up her sleeve. If not a Cryoling, then maybe some kind of other big Frost play. But I kind of feel like the Cryoling is really its do or die time.
She is very good at slow rolling her resources. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if this is an Ambrosia she's about to play out here.
No, it is in fact a Narpoon. Very notably is Water Enchanted. So with that Galaxy...
and she reveals her hand.
That is unfortunate.
That's game, I believe.
Yeah, that is game. The 2 Galaxies, Eddie and Cryovern in hand. There was no way out of that, unfortunately, for Jess. But that does mean that Adrien is our champion for today and will be the recipient of the Elestrals Champion stamped Reverse Stellar Mudlet. Absolutely incredible card. Great games. And Adrien getting 2 tournaments back to back.
We have our first champion of 2025, Adrien. Welcome. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
I'm doing great. I'm tired. I want to go to sleep, but I feel great. Honestly, I'm going to the gym after this, so I'm feeling
that's
great.
So real.
Exciting.
That's so real. Well, congratulations on being a champion and doing it back to back as well. That is an insane accomplishment to be able to say that you have.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I wasn't expecting that. I kind of just wanted to get top 8, and but honestly, I guess they just pit me against all the hardest opponents in the game and made me just have to adapt. So
yeah, and hey, you still
it was a blast playing against all of them though. Very talented players.
Yeah, you still went 2-0 for most of them, only dropping a game in finals. That's insane. That's insane. Very curious. We're chatting a little bit before we actually went live, but how much time and effort have you really put into preparing for this tournament?
So to be honest, for this premiere, because this is like the last Daybreak format tournament, like big one, it kind of like came down to just me doing a lot of locals and then kind of just slowly like refining the last list, because it's almost the same list, but with just understanding that there was cards I didn't like in the first premiere that I won, and then just making refinements, and then also kind of thinking people will probably play more like 5 variants. Or good stuff variants.
I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it really is just about playing good stuff, and if the good stuff works, it works, right?
Exactly, yeah, it just works.
I am curious about, was there anything in particular you're looking in terms of siding into a deck like Jess's? Because I know it's a little bit different from kind of how the rest of the format laid out.
So one of my testing partners, Joel or Hunter Surge, plays like a lot of like Frost. So I knew I immediately had to cut all my Cryoblasts out and take out the Flare Mine, because I was like, this card will unfortunately not have the value that I want it to have. And then the joke was like the last premiere, I never used it, but it was still my favorite card. But the Race to the Top package actually came in and helped a lot into these matchups, just because Race to the Top lets you just get rid of like a well-statted monster. And Mount Olympus, a lot of people are playing Stadium Wars now, so you're actually just kind of able to sit on Mount Olympus, and a lot of these good stuff decks are only actually playing Astro Rabbit and the one check. So you can just always have like all these Thunders that don't die to Cryoblast now, like Coxion and Jolton, because of the Mount Olympus. So it helped a lot actually in this tournament specifically.
But kind of looking forward into what is to come, I'm curious with Moonrise sort of out in the distance, officially making it to LGSs in 6 days and being shipped from the online orders shortly after. Are there any like cards or strategies you're looking to try out or maybe implement in what you're already playing?
Honestly, I'd say it's probably Pulveror and Draco Ray. I am a huge Draco Ray enthusiast from the new tournament pack, by the way. I'm going to be testing it out a lot. Definitely, though, I think a card that is going to be like a must in sideboards will be like from Moonrise will be Spoiled Fruits.
Yeah, as we have more Elestrals that heal and big Elestrals that heal, even if it's like a passive thing that's like, oh, this is a part of the benefit or whatever, it's not like the main effect. That's still a way to pop an Elestral on board. That's pretty crazy. You know, you've been playing for just a short period of time now. We talked before, only about 2 months, you said?
I'd say like maybe now 3 months. More in the longer term, but yeah, about 3 months now.
Okay. So you've not been playing for too long, and I can imagine that you can think back to when you were just getting into the game and you didn't really know a whole lot, and you're looking to get into it and play more competitively. I'm curious if there's any sort of like words of inspiration or encouragement that you'd like to share to all the other casters out there watching this production that are trying to strive for the same type of achievement that you've just achieved.
So for me, it's always like grinding. If you have a locals, if you have like the online casual tournaments, for example, just to do whatever you can to like just to grind those out, and that way you gain the experience, the knowledge with not only your deck, but being like against all these differently talented opponents, and then like learn from them, and even like understand like all the small nitty-gritty rulings, and then even then understanding that, you know, you will lose sometimes, but what matters is just keep playing, and like it will pay off. You just gotta believe in like the hard work.
Yeah, it very much is down to reps. It's just like going to the gym. You gotta put in the reps to see that growth. Like that's just how it is.
Exactly. yeah.
All right, well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We're about to end the stream for the day, end out this tournament. But before we let you go, is there anyone that you'd like to thank, shout out you and your testing partners that helped you reach this, you know, this amazing accomplishment of being our first champion of 2025?
Yeah, I would like to obviously thank my family. I'd like to thank Joel, Wayne Armstrong, and Hunter Surge, and obviously Sean Yorkfin. I would also like to thank all like the definitely the players in the top 8, like Bean Soldier, Trish, and Jess, all very good players that, you know, require me to like up my game always at every single game. I can never just take a break. I gotta go, okay, let's keep going. But yeah, I'd like to thank all of them. And I'd like to thank the locals that I have available around me that host this game, and I am very excited for when Dallas happens.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us on the cast briefly. Congratulations once again for the big win, the first champion of 2025. Just incredible achievement that only you can claim. And with that, that's it for our production. Thank you so much to the production here, to my fellow casters, Kay and Law, for joining me here. And thank you to everyone at home for watching along and watching these incredible matches, these incredible players like Adrien play and just absolutely put off an incredible showing for us in this game that we all love. So with that, thank you so much for everyone here. Thank you for watching. And we'll see you on February 8th for the next tournament online.